In this video, I'm going to break down exactly one of the most important things when it comes to sports betting. If you guys watch and take exactly the advice that I'm going to give you, you can transition yourself into being some degenerate gambler that just is throwing money left and right to actually somebody who is looking to make a long-term profit and enjoy themselves in the time being of doing it, and their mental health can stay intact. Now, we've all been there before, correct? Where we've lost a bet. We get that feeling inside that just feels like, man, I just wish that, I had that back. I wish I could just get that money back that I put down. And what do we end up doing? We end up going and putting more money on the next game because we're trying to recoup our losses because we just can't take that L. It just doesn't sit right. You don't want to go into, bed that night a loser, right? You don't want that feeling of feeling like a loser. You want to recoup your money back at least and go to bed feeling like, well, at least I got my money back. This is where it becomes very, very tricky for not just sports bettors, but just gamblers in general, because the gambling mentality has always been the same. So the mentality of a gambler, when they go in, they expect to make the same amount of money that they're putting in, right? If they go into a casino with $1,000, well, they're looking to make at least $1,000 or more. Most people go in thinking like, oh, I want to make like 3 or 4,000. Like, I've seen a lot of videos lately where a group of guys will get together, and they'll show what they're starting with going into a casino. Like, oh, I'm starting with $500. I expect to make 2,000. I'm starting with 300. I expect to make 1,000. People don't realize when it comes to gambling and investing, the returns on investment that are realistic and what's not. So yes, you could go into a casino any given night, right? And take $500 out, throw it in a slot machine, hit 2,000, 3,000 in a slot machine, and now you feel great, correct? Anybody could do that on any given night. But the problem that happens there is the mentality now breaks, where you think, man, that was easy. Some people work all week. Some people work all month for $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000 that I just made in that slot machine. So now the brain starts going, well, what if I do that again? Maybe I could do that again. So then that same person turns around, goes back the next day or the next week and takes $500, puts it back in there. What do? They lose. Now, not really realizing that, they made like 2,000 or 3,000 on that one night. They lost $500 that day. Their mentality is like, now I'm a loser. I feel like a loser. So now what are they doing? They're shoveling right back into their pocket again, putting another 500 in, then another 500. Then next thing you know, they lost all that money that they recouped on that one day where they won. So now they're pretty much digging into their own pocket and chasing that feeling of winning, because that's where they trap you at. Now, the same thing applies to sports betting with parlay betting, because parlay betting is equivalent to slot machines. So if you take $500 and you put it on a 4 or 5 teamer, yes, your return might be 2 or 3 grand. And then you end up getting lucky one time and you're hitting that. Guess what happens? The mentality thinks, I can do this all the time now. Next thing you know, you're shoveling $500 out of your pocket on 4 or 5 teamers left and right, and you dig yourself into a hole because you're not realizing one key thing when it comes to whether it's gambling, investing, whatever it is, it's probability. And what is the probability long term that I'm going to win? When it comes to a slot machine in the casino, long term probability is always negative. You are never going to become a professional slot machine player. It's just not going to happen. Those are machines that you can't have an edge on because all you're doing is sitting there pressing a button. Okay? That's all you're doing. You're sitting there pressing a button. There's no edge to be found there. Long term, you're always going to end up in the negative. Same with parlays. Parlays, the probability on a 4 or 5 teamer is less than 2% most of the time. Depending on the odds that you're using, less than 2%. So that means 98% of the time you're going to lose that bet. So if you're shoveling out $500 per parlay bet, $100 per parlay bet, and you're losing 98% of the time, you are never going to withstand losing 98% of the time to win that 2% of the time. It's not going to happen because the mentality of somebody that goes in cannot withstand losing that much. because it feels like losing after losing after losing. So this is a slump that a lot of sports bettors occur because they get stuck in the parlay system. And sportsbooks know this. And that's why it's portrayed, as soon as you log into a sportsbook, first thing that's thrown at you are same game parlays, 5-6 teamers that are put together that you can just press a button, and they're pretty much, lottery slot machine plays. Press the button, put $5-10 on it, hopefully you hit for a couple $100, right? Or you put a couple $100 on it, hopefully you hit for a couple thousand. Most likely not going to happen. So you have to realize the probability of what you're doing long term is where your mind needs to be trained at. If your mind isn't trained to understand probability, then you're just donating money, whether it be in the casino, the sports book, anywhere. You're just donating cash. That's literally all you're doing. Just giving your money away. You have to transition your mind into thinking, well, if I'm going to bet a parlay, it's just like me doing a slot machine. If long term the odds are stacked against me, why am I going to do that? There's no reason for me to do that. Do you know, I have never seen a single person that would go into a casino, put $1,000 in a slot machine. This happens to everybody most of the time. If you go put a certain amount of money in a slot machine, let's say you put $1,000 into a slot machine, a couple pulls in, let's say you end up winning like $25, $100, $150. Nobody ever walks away, right? You're up $25 to $150, and you put $1,000 in. Nobody cashes out and is like, all right, well, I'm good. I made $150 or I made $50. Nobody does that put that amount of money in the machine. They're looking for that $1,000 to turn into another 1,000 or multiple thousands. But they don't realize that you just made a profit. You could easily just cash that out and walk away, and you made money for the day rather than keep going. Most people will keep going. Now, that is the same thing as in sports betting, where somebody goes and bets a minus 200 or minus 250. You go and put $500 down on a minus 200, you make $250. People aren't satisfied because they're like, well, I put down 500, but I should be getting at least $500 back. But they don't realize the probability aspect of that. You go and put $500 down on a play that's going to give you 70+% probability of winning. Now you're setting yourself up for success long term. Okay? That is where it differentiates. That's where it becomes a little bit more transitioning into making money rather than just donating. Because most people will just donate their cash. That's all they will do. Chasing even money plays that are going to double up their cash, or those multi-leg parlays that are going to give them 10x, 20x what they originally put down. And that is how the sports books make their billions of dollars. They don't make billions of dollars off of people going and straight betting plays that are in the player's favor. They do not make money doing that. Hence the reason why, if you're trying to bet thousands of dollars on those plays, you eventually get limited. Okay? You will never get limited playing parlays. Think about that. If I'm putting $100,000 on parlays, I will never get limited. If I'm putting $100,000 on certain plays that are minus 200 that give me 70% probability, they're going to cut you off like that. Why is that? That's because they are vulnerable in one sector and you are vulnerable in the other sector, which is the higher probability in your favor, parlays are in their favor. So what happens there? That means they want you to play those parlays. They want you to gravitate towards that area because that's where they make their billions and billions of dollars at. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're a casual bettor, you're somebody that just likes to bet on the weekends. They like to take 10, 20, 30 bucks, occasionally throw a bet in or whatnot. And you're doing it for entertainment purposes. Go ahead. Go for your parlays. Go for your long shots. Because if you don't care about losing the money to 10, 20, $30, then it is what it is. But if you want to make, secondary source of income, primary source of income type thing, you can't be in that sector. You can't be in the sector of betting parlays, trying to grab, the big money off of small money. That's just not going to happen, okay? Most people think that small money to make big money is the way to go, where it's actually the complete opposite, where it's big money to make small money in increments is really where you make all of your money. That is where you stay consistent. That is where you're able to slowly grow your bankroll and your account. The other way you slowly go straight down. Again, because it comes to emotion as well. I tell people that just turned 21, the best possible thing that you could do when you turn 21 is walk yourself into a casino, take $400 or $500, throw it in a slot machine, and absolutely lose. And don't even get one bonus spin, no nothing. You just absolutely just donate your money. Because that right there destroys the mentality of thinking, this is fun, maybe I could do this all the time. Nobody wants to do that all the time. Nobody wants to go in and donate money right away, give it away. That's the best possible thing that I tell people that are turning 21 years old. Because if you walk into that casino and you're turning 21 and you throw $100, $500 in a machine and you win a couple thousand, you are done for the rest of your life because you will be chasing that feeling. The same thing goes for parlays. You're just starting out in sports betting and you hit a 5 or 6 teamer, you're done. You might never make that transition to betting just straight bets because why? You got that one huge hit and you will always be chasing that feeling. You become a degenerate gambler when you're chasing the feelings. When you're chasing the feelings and the emotion of being a winner, that is where you are becoming a losing gambler, investor, sports bettor, any of that. That's where you're becoming a loser at, chasing the emotions, chasing the feelings. Forget the emotions, forget the feelings. When you invest into the stock market, you put your money in a stock, you don't sit there every day watching that stock, watching that company every single day, every single moment, refreshing your phone. You don't do that. You put that money in there and you just leave it in there. And then what happens? It either grows or it tanks depending on what the stocks are doing, but you don't sit there and get emotional with it. Why? Because there's nothing to watch. You're just watching a ticker. So there's no excitement in that. Where people get too excited because they're betting on the NBA Finals or they're betting on the Super Bowl. You know, the emotion comes into play because you're watching that happen in front of you. So you have to mold both of the mindsets together. Take sports betting, take investing in the stock market, take the mentalities, put them together and understand every day if you just stay consistent with the correct strategy, take emotion completely out and don't do any type of low probability plays that are rarely ever going to hit. You will be mentally sound and be able to do this as a career or as a side income. It just takes the right strategy, the right bankroll, and staying consistent. That is all that it takes. If you can literally stick to those 3 things right there, you can actually enjoy making money when it comes to sports betting rather than just giving your money away on long shots that are never going to win. And if you just keep donating and donating and donating, next thing you know, you'll have no more money to donate. And then that is a gambling problem. And guess what? You start selling things in your house, you start digging into whatever savings you have to just try to spend it to get that feeling back again of that one time you ended up hitting something and winning. So to avoid all of that, stick to playing stuff that is in your favor, that gives you an edge. If it doesn't give you an edge, then it doesn't make any sense. Remember that. It's one of the most important things that I like to preach when it comes to sports betting. Make sure you have an edge. If you are playing a negative edge long term, your bankroll will slowly go down. If you're playing a positive edge long term, your bankroll will slowly go up. It just depends if you have the right strategy in place to produce that edge. And remember, when you have an edge, then every bet becomes a winning opportunity. As always, guys, I'm Frank from Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.